Well, we have a go-to man whenever it comes to logistics, and Francois Nortje is that man. He is the director of NT55 Investments, but better known as the developer of the Port of Gauteng. He's made Transnet his business. He's focused on it. He knows what's going on there. And with the big announcement that finally Transnet has done a deal in a public-private partnership, who better to go to than Francois? He joins us now. Maybe let's just put that into some perspective, Francois. Why are you so interested in Transnet? What's the reason for your business reason, apart from being a personal one?
I'm the developer of the Port of Gauteng. We want to develop an inland port as you come into Gauteng and Ekurhuleni to help with logistics and reduce logistics cost and warehouse cost. So the Port of Durban will be the feeder to the Port of Gauteng. 90% of the stuff that comes into Gauteng comes from the Port of Durban. And Durban land is expensive, and it's healing, the Valley of 1,000 Hills. That's where Durban is. And when you do the bigger warehousing, and warehousing is getting bigger and bigger in the world, where people are moving to third-party logistics, it's very expensive to put those warehouses in Durban. If you bring them to the flat East Rand, between the railway line and the N3, your cost of the warehouse will come down, your cost of logistics will come down, no double movement. So we think there's an opportunity to reduce logistics cost and thereby creating some nice property investments that will be there for many decades, because office nodes change and shopping centers change, but trade routes been there for thousands of years. The N3 is never going to move. The Durban-Joburg railway line is never going to move. The Port of Durban is never going to move. Port of Durban has been there for 300 years. The properties around the Port of Durban has been one of the best property investments that you could get in the world, and that's why we're interested in to create another set of commercial property investments that pension funds and people with long-term views, 30, 50 years, will be interested.
So you must be very excited to hear the news that after 2 years, is it?
Yes.
That the Transnet had expressions for interest in bringing in a private sector partner, that ICTSI, a Filipino-based company that's worth, I looked on the JSE, it's listed in the Manila Stock Exchange, it's worth about the same as ShopRite, bigger than Impala Platinum, Nedbank, Discovery. So it's a proper company, this one, that they are going to be entering South Africa as the partner of Transnet in the Durban harbour.
Yes, I'm excited. I see they're only 36 years old. Basically, it's run by an entrepreneur. So it's not an institutional company. It's an entrepreneurial company, which always is good. And they started 36 years ago by taking over the port of Manila. And now they're in 20 countries in the world. So they've moved on. They're progressive. But I think it's in the Philippine nation's DNA to run ports. Philippines 7,000 islands. So they've always sailed. And if you sail, you need to have a port. And according to Wikipedia, 25% of all the merchant sailors in the world are Filipino, from the Filipino nation. So for one nation out of 200 nations in the world to have 25% of the merchant ship workers in the world, it's in their DNA. So I think it's the best country that could have ever, by far, a company coming from that history. That's in that country's DNA, is to run harbours and sail and understand shipping. I'm very pleased that it's a Filipino company. I don't think we could have picked better. I congratulate Transnet on it, whoever made this decision. I think it's a very good decision.
It's been a long process, as mentioned earlier, 2 years, but I guess what most South Africans would be happy about is that the two big competitors to ICTSI are both Chinese. And when you consider the relationship between South Africa and China in BRICS, you would almost have thought if there was a political initiative or any political involvement, then the Chinese companies would have got the nod, but not so. A Filipino company got it.
I'm very happy with that, because there was all kinds of rumors about it. And I'm very happy. The port of Lucca hasn't yet been awarded. That was at the last minute not awarded. I don't know why. Maybe that was the political and the Chinese, but yeah, got no specific proof around that. But I'm very happy because Durban Port is the port that I'm specifically interested in, and most business people in this country that imports and export, except for the mines, they go to Jits Bay and sea ship, stuff like that. But the general goods market is Durban, and we're happy. Can't wait for it to start working.
When will it happen?
Oof, I see that the tenders awarded now, they're going to only do contracts. So there's no timeline in the announcement that Transnet made. And they just issued a press statement. There wasn't a press conference that journalists could ask them questions. It was just a press release that was emailed and WhatsApp. So we just have to take what is in there. Hopefully they'll clarify in the near future what is the timeline. And these things are always longer. It always takes longer than what you think it will take. But you have to go through it. So let's up there. There's light in the tunnel soon.
Francois, I was reading through that press release, and it refers to Pier Two, which does about 3/4 of the Port of Durban's volumes and almost half of South Africa's total port traffic. So this is a sizable operation. I suppose it would be the lifeblood or the biggest artery for our imports and exports.
For the moment, Durban will eventually have, I think, 5 piers. And if they are now at about 2.8 million containers a year. And eventually they'll go to 11.3. That's the planned capacity at the moment. And the other piers will catch up. So there's plenty space for future similar companies to come in, especially Pier 1, which is already in existence, and then the future 3, 4, and I think it's 3, 4, and Pier will have another one. I don't have the plan in front of me now, but there will be 5, whether it's 2 A and B, and then 1, 2, 1, 3, and 4, but there will be eventually the master plan, 5 areas for containers in Durban. But there's a long wait between 2.8 and 11.3 million. It's a good, and I'm glad that the Philippines is the first. I think it
gives them a foot in the door for the other peers. But is that likely? Are we likely to see a repeat? In other words, with public-private partnerships on those peers going forward, or might Transnet want to run it themselves again?
I think these guys will show how it's done internationally, and thereafter the rest will follow. But I don't think they'll give it all to one company. It's not. Then it becomes monopolistic. You don't want to replace the Transnet monopoly with a private sector monopoly. The next one must go to another company. That's my personal opinion. Can't just all go to one company. But they'll set the benchmark. And then shipping companies will decide, we want to dock at Pier 2 because things are happening there. And competition is very, there's a private sector demand. And the company that I think will be the most competitive and will set the standard is first in. So it's not that the competition and the standards will come later. I think this company will set the standard from day one. So whoever wants to run Pier 1 and then the later piers will have to be up to speed or they will be out of business.
Often when you have a look out on the Indian Ocean outside of the Durban harbour, you'll see lots of ships waiting. Is that going to reduce if you have a more efficient port operator?
We think so. I live in Bellitoro half the year. There's quite a few ships at the moment lying there. But I believe if you look outside Los Angeles Harbour, there's 30 times more ships because of the logistics backlog. And the harbour can't always be ready for every ship. There will always be ships that's waiting something. So there will always be some ships in the sea outside lying. The problem is from the land side, you can't always see how many because there could be 2 or 3 or 4 rows. But the news I get and the news I read is that a lot of harbours have got congestion. So I don't think it will disappear. And it's something nice for the people to look at that's got seafront properties, seeing the lights in the sea, And they actually brag about, oh, my house, see the ship lights, stuff like that. So it's we got so used to it, and it's nice to have to see it at night, not just this black hole the sea. I don't think it will disappear. It might shorten, but the most important thing is the volume that goes through and how quickly it happens. Because the harbours were rated quite badly, in the last 5 or 10 of the 350 harbours in the world. And the measure will be when the world competitive reports come out, and we're moving from 350 to 250 and hopefully to 150 out of 350.
Yeah, so from wooden spoonists to hopefully far better. But what about the next leg in the chain, the rail traffic coming from the Durban harbour up to Gauteng, which is the biggest market by far in the country? Is that not also, it just feels like, get Durban harbour right, yes, tick. But if you haven't got the rail side of it right, and we know there are many challenges there, then you almost wonder whether any benefit will be achieved.
Now, there will be benefit achieved, but the rail is coming. They've put out a request for proposals. I've criticised it. I think there's some errors or mistakes made in that request, but it's out there. And I said to Linda about a month ago when she interviewed me, hope we're not back here 2 years' time to repeat it again. But they've put out the request. And one thing that was interesting in also commented in this tender, you can call it a tender, is that went to an independent company. It's not somebody that's got a vested interest. And I hope that happens with the railway line, because there's quite a vested interest on the railway line, that it's a good operator. They can pick, like this was an independent, the best that you could get pick. We can get the independent best pick for the railway line. Then the two links are done. Then things will start happening. So it's a slow process. It's driving me mad, how long it takes. But at least it's happening. And it's happened to the right company, I think. So in that sense, I'm very happy.
18 responses to the original request for interest. Of those, 9 were from global terminal operators. This is according to the Transnet press release. 10 were shortlisted, 6 submitted proposal, and this is your game, and you say they could not have chosen a better one. Are we seeing similar interest, or is there likely to be similar interest on the rail link?
I've got no idea. I was thinking of participating, but because of the lack of information, I didn't participate. I know of people that are participating. We will watch the bated breath what will be announced, how many people are interested. I hope there's as many, and there is a quality pick. That they can live with the conditions that Transnet has put there. Some serious conditions. They want 5 billion rand invested into the railway line, and that you must take over all the staff at City Deep and Gazani, or the staff on that line. They've had similar conditions of the Durban harbour, and that got accepted. But that's a different ballgame. The harbour is the harbour. There's no competition for the harbour. But the railway line has got the N3 that is its competition, and it tracks. So it'll be interesting if they accept that 5 billion and taking over the employees. Time will tell.
It's an interesting point you make there, because there were a number of conditions also, as you say, with the Filipino company getting this license. First of all, it's only 25 years. So one would wonder whether, well, they've obviously done their sums, but 25 years doesn't sound like a lot of time. But the other thing is that they have to take over all the employees, plus the Transnet remains the controlling shareholder with 50% plus 1 share. Now, all of those conditions sound very onerous, and yet this very well-regarded international company still went ahead and did the deal.
Yeah, no, that's why I said, because the harbour has to happen. You can't fly out the stuff at Margate or take it on a boat by Margate. Well, there's no alternative way to get it from that side to seaside. where the road, there's an alternative. So I think and it shows obviously that they think they can make it work. But when there is alternatives and there's such conditions, my opinion is it will fail the first time, the rail. It's on record saying that. So let's see. Or it might be stopped by the competition authority, because it might, there are people that needs to protect their interest along the railway line, that would like to tender for it to protect their interest. And that's replacing a state monopoly with a private monopoly. And I don't think they'll get competition approval for that. And I don't think Transnet have thought about that. And because the timeline they published, they said tender to be adjudicated end of January or announced, and take over 1st of March. They've allowed no in their time frame for competition authority investigation approval. So I've placed that on record to Andrew Shaw. I think that they are naive and that it will be stopped if the wrong parties win that tender. So, but I've got no idea who's tendered and who's interested. And like with this one, there was 10 shortlisted, but only 6 submitted a bid. Once we know how many people have submitted a bid for the railway line, and if they are independent people that can't run into competition problems, then we will have an idea if there could be a upgrade.
So what does all of this mean, though, for South Africa? We know that it's not good to have bad ports, or ports as we know rated amongst the worst in the world. Now that we've got a private sector operator, one hopes that Durban, for at least, will go much higher. But what does it mean in a broad sense?
It's very important because, currency fluctuates, and currency fluctuation, some people get oppressed if the currency goes down. But some countries like Japan for years wanted a lower, weaker currency because it creates exports. But it doesn't help you got a lower currency and you can't export. The mines can't put out the coal. We missed this coal boom that's just happened. It doesn't help. We got 100,000 orange container reefers with orange containers with 13 tons of oranges all inside it, and they can't go out. And the oranges go fraud. Then a lower currency or weaker currency brings no benefit. Then you go into a depression spiral. The currency weakens and weakens, and you can't take advantage of it. As your currency goes weaker, your imports get more expensive. It brings some inflation into the economy, but you create jobs, you export, and you create wealth, even though it's at a lower currency base. But if you can't export, you've got a major, major problem, especially with us, though the currency is weaker. So this might not bring benefit, but it can stop the spiral, the death spiral in the economy. That the currency weakens and weakens, and the mines can't export and can't create jobs, and the agricultural guys can't export. And jobs get lost, and we're getting poorer and poorer, and it creates inflation. I think it's called stagflation. Economy don't grow, and there's inflation. You're going to a very bad spiral. So at first, this is not creating necessarily opportunities, but it's stabilizing the economy, taking us out of the ICU to the general ward. That's what it is.
Francois Nortje is the director of NT55 Investments, and I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.